Okay. All right, so, yep, that's working. So last week, I didn't realize this, but up until this semester, I've been broadcasting or streaming the videos live to YouTube, and YouTube takes care of recording them, which was a problem in the past sometimes because some of the lectures would get interrupted because the internet connection would drop here on campus, and we'd lose the lecture. And YouTube stopped allowing me to do that. They don't have, you basically have to install additional software in order to stream live to YouTube. So I moved to a system where I was recording them on my PC, which worked very well, except for there was a little echo at the beginning, but I think I figured that out. In any case, up until last week, it worked fine, but these videos make a lot of room on disk. And so I didn't realize it, but all during the last lecture, the video was too full, and so it didn't record. And I'd meant to go back and create a new one, but this week was really busy for advisement for some reason, because advisement was a couple weeks ago. But I had a lot of people that came in, and I never got around to making the new video yet. But I want to make the new video, but I'll probably only focus on the important part, which were publishing the tiled map services. Because there was a lot of text. I went through the text, but I don't think I'm going to go talk for another 3 hours on that, because I don't really have time to do, or 2 hours on that. I don't really have time to do that, but I will do the demonstration of the video of the publishing tiled map services and the explanation for publishing tiled map services over again. I'll probably actually do that right after this. My daughter practices downtown for a play that she's in till 9, so I'll probably do it right after this class if I have time, and post that in addition to while I'm waiting for her, and then post that. I was toying around with just doing it again in class, but I think you don't all need to sit around and watch me do it again. You can just watch the video if you need it again. So I'll do that. So I think you should be able to see my computer now. Is that correct? Down there at the coast, Heather? Anybody else that's there? Okay, good. So starting next week, oh, actually, before we go too much further, next week I won't be here. Okay, so we're just gonna kind of push together a few lectures, and we've already been doing that, because I knew a couple weeks ago we were gonna go do this. So no class next week. We just won't meet. That's next Thursday, and then that'll be on the 10th. Okay, I did adjust the syllabus, so if you need to go look at the syllabus, no class. Or the 8th. Sorry, I forgot this was the Tuesday class. No class on the 8th. Sorry about that. We will have class on the 15th, and barring like a scheduling conflict, class on the 15th will probably be on the coast. Now, when's Thanksgiving? I know that doesn't affect this class, but it's the 24th, right? What's that? Okay, yeah. I guess it's always the 4th Thursday in November. I could have just calculated that out. Okay. But yeah, on Thanksgiving week, I know the course will be from here, so pretty much we have to do the 15th on the coast. So today's the 1st, no class next week, the 8th. The 15th, I'll be down on the coast again, and so then we'll meet here on the 22nd. All right. So that's the upcoming schedule. All right. I don't think I have any other announcements. Any questions about timeline, schedules, all that? I'm feeling a little under the weather today. Sorry. Oh, another thing that I wanted to announce is because of the video link mess up, the homework for the last 2 weeks will just make it due after I get back. Okay. So, all right. Good. Heather, you have a question? No, well, I mean, it's postponed. You don't have to have the data published, but you still need to do that soon. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. You can access the server from home as of, well, I guess yesterday was Monday. As of Monday, you could access it from home. And then, Elida, your question was last week's homework. So Elida has a question, what is last week's homework? Because it was hard to make sense of without the video, because the homework assignment actually references the video, right? I mean, I say something about, let's go to last week's homework, Blackboard. That was a good, important announcement there, Heather. Yes, so you can access it from home now. Okay, course materials. Tiled assignment. And when I recreate the video, I'll go back through this, but yeah, well, there were a few people that weren't here last week besides you, so. But yeah, I'll go through this when I do it. But basically, you need to create a tiled map service, and there were some size restrictions that I talked about. But you can hold off on that until you see the video. Anybody that's still questioning that. And if you have a question, you can contact me by email while I'm gone. I'm pretty sure that I'll still have email. I will be out of the country, but I'll be staying at an Airbnb. I'm traveling for a company, and the Nature Conservancy that I'm working with, and for some reason they reserved a Airbnb. I'm going to a conference to present rather than a hotel, but I'm pretty sure they'll still have internet. Even if they don't, I'll have it at the conference center. All right. Okay, so I wanted to ask a question here real quick before we begin. Today we're going to talk about GeoServer. GeoServer is an open source alternative to ArcGIS server. It allows you to put your GIS data up as a service so people can access it through tools like Leaflet. Leaflet's just one tool. ArcGIS, JavaScript API is another one. OpenLayers is another one. These are all tools for accessing or displaying maps that are running as services. Okay, so my question is, and this has to do with the reason why I pushed this off. I pushed this back actually, if you looked in the syllabus, well, the original syllabus. Because I wanted you all to be able to access the server, especially from home, so that you could put your own data up there. Now, the solution that the university has allowed me to do is a little bit, it's not ideal. It's not the way I wanted to do it, but they won't let me run a FTP or an SFTP server with access off campus for some reason. Okay, so we're going to have to move our data up using remote desktop. Okay. Who here's used remote desktop before? Either of you two? No? How about on the coast? Anybody raising their hand? I can't, it's backlit, so I can't see. A few of you? Okay, so we're going to access the server using a remote desktop, and you can actually transfer files up to a server using remote desktop. It's it's not done. It's actually slightly slower. Well, not slightly slower. It's about half the speed of transferring it up using FTP or SFTP. But we're going to have to go with this option. The other thing that I don't like about this option is that it only allows, well, by default, Windows, unless you buy more remote desktop licenses, only allows 2 people to connect to a machine at the same time remotely. All right? So if you get a message that says there's too many people connected, when you try to connect, you're going to have an issue. So that being said, I'm going to show you how to remote desktop in and how to upload the files using remote desktop. But if for some reason there's other people logged in or whatever, we still have the backup plan that I talked about. You can tell me, hey, put my data in the directory for me. You'll see what I'm talking about in a few minutes. Here's my data, put it in there for me, and then it'll be there, and you can complete the rest of the work that you want to do. All right? It's not that hard. It's just you have to wait for somebody else to do it, which is kind of a pain. But if there's already 2 people logged in, you have to wait anyway. Not ideal. Okay? But that's what we're saddled with, at least for this semester, until I come up with a argument. I actually have servers where I have FTP accessed, but I guess they're getting a little more stringent on this requirement. Okay, so I think remote desktop is installed by default on computers, so you should be able to all access this. Now, like I said, only 1 or 2 of you at a time will be able to get in, but I'd be interested, so go ahead and try it out and we'll see who else gets in. If you go to, I don't know where it is on your machines because I'm running Windows 10, I just type in remote. I start typing in remote. But there's a program called Remote Desktop Connection. And that's what I'm going to open. Just because I'm paranoid about this, I'm going to make sure that this is recording. It's recording, okay. Good. I want this to be there so that you can access this in the future. All right, so when you start Remote Desktop, you see this little window right here. And by default, all you need to do is type in the name of the computer, which is wm.smaps.org, and then hit connect. However, we want to share our local drives, the local drives on our computer. That's how we're going to get our data up onto the server. So what I'm going to do is go under Show Options. Okay. And then under Show Options, I have to go to Local Resources, this tab, and then under Local Devices and Resources, click More. And then make sure, I've already done this, but by default, Drives is not clicked. So make sure that you have Drives selected. So that's under, I went to General, I went to Show Options, I went to Local Resources, More, made sure Drives was selected. Okay, by default, this username is just blank, okay? Which is fine. Right now I'm going to hit connect, and it's going to give me a warning. I'm going to hit connect again, and here is where I need to type in my credentials. Now, if you're using Windows 10, you have to do this next step I'm going to talk about. If you're using an older version of Windows, you don't have to, but it won't hurt you to do this. I'm going to go down to More Choices and use a different account. Okay, and then what I'll type in here is wm.smapps.org/George, or sorry, no, web, that's me, web mapper, like that. It is case sensitive, lowercase w-e-b, uppercase m-a-p-p-r. And then our password is also on the screen right now. Our super secret password right there is w3bm at pp3r. It's just webmapper where the E's have been replaced with 3's and the A's have been replaced with @ signs. Okay, now, if we just hit OK here, didn't work. Why didn't that work? Just going to copy this, make sure I didn't. Okay, that worked. So I logged in. All right. So if you logged in, I forgot. So by default, only 2 people can log in at a time, but that's 2 different people. So now somebody else logged in. Who's in right now? I mean, it's totally fine because I told you to. Somebody on the coast, it looks like. So who sees the desktop is all I'm trying to say. Okay, cool. That's great. So it does work, even from the coast. That's awesome. So maybe what I should do is give everybody their own login and password. I'm going to steal it back from you for now, okay? But we might not do that just because only 2 people can log in anyway, and so now I have it back. I have control back. All right, so we might not do that because only 2 people can log in anyway, but I don't know. Let me think about that as to whether or not we'll have more than one login or password. But if you do have multiple logins, you can log in twice and you'll have different desktops. If you log in using the same desktop, you're just basically saying, show me the desktop. And if somebody else logs in the same login, you're pulling the desktop away from them. Only one user can be logged in. Sorry. A single user can only be logged in once. And so if somebody else logs in using the same username and password, it just assumes that you wanted to move to a different computer. So I explained this last week. We're looking at wm.smaps.org's desktop. It is running Windows 10. And we've successfully tested it from the coast. Somebody else logged in besides me. So you'll be able to do this at some point later on. So, what's that? wm.smaps.org. But if you log in right now, it's going to take it away from me. So. Right, it'll be on. Yeah, that'll be on the video. So I think I will probably just create a login for everybody so that we can take advantage of having at least 2. What I'll do though is it'll just be your last name with this same password for everybody. Everybody will have the same password. Okay. So try using that first, and then switch over to WebMapper if that doesn't work. Okay. Because there's a few other things that I'll have to do for each user to set up permissions. Okay. All right, so if I go here and look at the File Explorer, the File Explorer is Windows Explorer, then I can see there's a little bit of a delay because we're not using the same desktop computer. You can see here on this PC, I have a C, a Y, and a Z. I don't know why I have those. One of those is probably my computer. Oh, no, this is actually looking at my C drive for this computer, not, okay. See this local disk C? This is the remote computer. This one that says C on desktop is my local computer because I checked drives on, okay? So it's sharing that drive. I'm going to show you two important directories for this course. The first directory I'm going to show you is the directory that has the HTML files hosted. Right? So this is the recipe for putting your HTML file up on the internet. That's what I'm about to show you. Okay? So I'm going to take last week's where we ended last week, the HTML file, and put it up so that it's live for the internet. Anybody can see it, okay, now that it's off campus. Right? The directory I usually work in is CWM, and I made this one called LL Example Week 9 Post Class. This is an HTML file. If I want to make this live for the web, and this is actually something you'll need to do for your final project, I need to move this HTML file along with any other resources that it needs. What do I mean by resources? Yeah, if there's an external data file, or if there's an external image file like a picture, anything that it needs, I need to move this up onto the server. Okay, so I'm going to just go. Oh, sorry, question? Your USB drive should show up in this list. So it'll be one of these other ones, Y or Z. I think actually Z is my local USB drive. Yeah, you need to put it into the computer, and then you'll be able to get it up. All right, so I'm going to right-click on LL Example Week 9 and say Copy. And then I need to put this into the local directory on the server that will read this file. And that's under C, and then inetpub, and then www root. Okay? And I've already created this folder called Raber. But when you log in, you should create a folder with your last name. And then under Raber, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it Week 9. Whoops. I'm going to call it Week 9. And then I'm going to go into it, and I'm going to right-click and say Paste. So now that HTML file that was on my local computer, this computer that people in Hattiesburg can see, has been copied up to the server. I just copied it. I just copied some data up to the server. A file. I mean, it's data in a way, but we're going to copy data in a second. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy that directory right there, and I'm going to edit this and write below here, I'm going to write a directory for putting HTML files and other resources on the server. I'll put that right there. So that's the directory where you need to put other resources is on there. And then I'm also going to write this, and I'll copy this over in a second, directory for putting data for publishing on GeoServer. And I'll put that directory here in a second. Right? So I'm going to go back to here. Raber, week 9. Now, I'm going to change the name of this file to index.html. Okay. I'm just going to rename it index. The reason I'm renaming it index is now I'll be able to access it as wm.smaps.org/raber/week9. There it is. So now it's accessible to the entire web. This raber/week9 is on the server. It's any subdirectory under www root. So this one called IIS start is what you see when you just go to this. You see that kind of just blank message. But if I created another, let's say I created a new text document. Actually here, let's not do it that way. I'm going to delete it. So this is on the server. I'm going to just go ahead and open up Notepad++. Or Notepad, that's fine. And I'm just going to write hi. Save it as, I'll put it under C, inetpub, www root, raber. And I'm going to save this as index.html. So now under Raber, I have a file called index.html. And by default, it looks for an index.html. If you can find it, it uses that. So now when I go to /Raber, it's hard to see. Move that over a bit. It just says hi. Okay? So that's how I create, that's how I put HTML files on the server. That's how we're going to have to do it in this class. No matter what method you utilize in a production environment, at a job or in a lab somewhere, ultimately, what you have to do is make sure your HTML file gets into the right directory. Okay? So for our server, this happens to be the right directory. And for our environment, for the parameters that the university has allowed us, this happens to be the easiest way, or the only way that I know of, to get the files up there. Okay? Now, you might look and say, hey, there's another HTML file in that directory, llexample_week7. What if I want to show that one instead? I can show that one instead. I just have to type out llexample_week7.html, and now that file is referenced. So if it's not named index.html, it needs to be accessed by typing the entire name of the file. If it is named HTML, index.html, it'll choose that by default. Do you have any questions about that? That's week 9 again. All right. So that's moving our HTML files up onto the server. So over the next couple weeks, because you've got 2 weeks now, because there's no class next week, I should start seeing little folders in here that have the last names of everybody in the class. I don't think we have any duplicate last names. But if there are duplicate last names, just use your first initial. Okay? Then you could start putting up HTML files into that directory. And you can do this from anywhere you want. Okay? This doesn't have to be done in one of the labs. So the university did allow us to use remote desktop offsite. So that's good. Okay? All right. Next, we're going to look at another product. So I used to install GeoServer, when I say used to, I only taught this class once before, so this is the second time teaching it. But the first time I taught this course, I used to, or I did, install both ArcGIS Server and GeoServer in front of the class. Okay? However, it's become really easy to do this. Literally, it was 3 clicks to do this. Really, it was like 3 or 4 clicks to do ArcGIS Server. It's really fast. Well, not fast. It still takes a long time for the little slider bar to go across, which is kind of annoying. And so we don't really want to do that as a class. But this is easy to do. The only trick with GeoServer here is that you have to install the Java. You have to install Java first. Okay, I'll show you what I mean by that. You just install Java, JRE. Okay. Oh, that's a lot of. That's a lot of choices. I'm just going to say, there we go. Instructions for installing Java for Windows Online. So if you have an online thing, you click that. There's a big red button. You install it, and you're good to go. There's no options for installing what it needs for installing Java. All right, once you install Java, installing this product, which is called GeoServer, is very, very easy. It's just a click-through wizard. The only option is where your data directory is going to be, and I just chose the default location, which is good. Okay, we're gonna use the default location. However, in a real-life environment, you may want to put it on a D drive or something, but our server only has a C drive, so I just left it where it is. Right? GeoServer is one of a number of web map servers. It's one of a number of web map servers, but it's probably the most common one that I know of. At least it's the most common fully featured web map server. There are some niche web map servers that only do tiling, that are very popular for that task of only doing tiling. And there are some niche web map servers that only serve JSON. Okay? And they're very popular for doing that. Well, GeoServer is a tool that is a fully featured web map server, very similar to ArcGIS Server, except for that it's open source and therefore it's free. And there are several advantages to GeoServer over ArcGIS Server, and there are some drawbacks. Okay, I'll just go over a few that I think are key, really, really important. GeoServer does not start up a separate program for every map service that you create. There's only one program running in the background, the main GeoServer process. And so GeoServer, it doesn't matter if you have 1 layer published or 1 million layers published, GeoServer will run just as fast. What changes is how many requests. So in other words, if you have lots of requests, GeoServer is going to perform just as bad because it's still trying to field tons of requests at the same time. However, if you have 40 services or 40 layers in ArcGIS Server and 40 layers in GeoServer, and they're both getting the same amount of load, the GeoServer is going to perform better because there's only one program running in the background, whereas there's 40 programs running in the background for ArcGIS Server. So it's one of the big differences. GeoServer runs better under a normal load. Okay. All right. Another kind of advantage that it's changing, but it's kind of an advantage now. GeoServer allows you to publish that open source format GeoJSON right out of the box. Okay. And GeoJSON is pretty useful. We've used it already in class. You can use ArcGIS Server to publish GeoJSON, but it requires a separate extension, and so it's a little bit more to install. It used to be that it just didn't even do it. Okay, so at least now it does it. All right, as far as some drawbacks, probably one of the biggest drawbacks is that ArcGIS server is tightly coupled with ArcMap. Okay, what do I mean? What might I mean by that? I mean, you've already had some experience now publishing. When I say they're tightly coupled, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. You could publish right from within ArcMap, and on top of that, the symbology that you see in ArcMap gets transferred right onto the web with the data. It's all like a seamless package. GeoServer doesn't have an equivalent desktop product. There are open source desktop products, but they're kind of developed in by a closed team. I'm going to develop an alternative open source desktop package, and another team says I'm going to develop an open source server package. And they develop it, and they kind of talk to each other. Oh, how can we get the data to interface? Well, we need to use open standards. We use open standards and all that. But the programs themselves don't like flow like ArcMap does, which is a drawback. And lots of times individuals will create middleware. They actually call them middleware software packages that will help you to bridge that gap. All right. Now, there's lots of different middleware packages, and sometimes they work great, and sometimes they fail. Sometimes when GeoServer gets upgraded, or QGIS, which is the desktop package, gets upgraded, all of a sudden it breaks the middleware piece. Okay? So there's something that you need to stay on top of, and basically, it involves people with a little more know-how to make sure that the flow happens smoothly. All right, so one of the ways this hits the hardest is in symbology. Getting your data symbolized the way you want it in a WMS is hard. So if you have access to ArcGIS server and you want your symbols to always look a certain way, it's easiest to just use ArcMap to do that. If you don't have it, I'll touch on how to symbolize things briefly, but it does involve a little bit more work. However, if you're going to do something like publish something just for the data to be published, like as a GeoJSON service, and you're going to let the front-end user symbolize it, the web developer symbolize it however they want, there's really not much of a disadvantage either way, okay? Because you're basically turning the symbology over to somebody else. You're not trying to create a dynamic map, then it's okay. All right, so this is the interface to GeoServer, and this interface, you can all get to this now, okay? You can go to this. We can have as many people as want access this address. So I could put this up there too, actually. You don't need that /web. It'll append that on there by itself. So I'm going to put this up on, put this right here and say URL for our class GeoServer. And then I might as well save this so that it's actually up there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this this directory, and then I can just hit save. I'll go back to this directory in a second. Oh, that's a different computer. I put it this one. Okay. C program files, GeoServer, data directory, data. So this is the directory where we'll need to put our data later. I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit here. So now this information is up there. So I have the URL for our class geo server. That's this, and I have the other directory that I just went over, and this is the directory we'll use in a second. One more thing I forgot. I'm going to put the username and password for this guy. Username is admin. Password is geo server, and that's just the default username and password. And so I just went with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and log in using that username and password. And everybody can do this. It's something we can all do together. So under username and password on the upper right-hand corner up here, type in admin and then geo server, all lowercase. You can even put in remember me so you don't have to type it in again. All right, so we're inside of GeoServer, and ArcGIS does actually have a web administration panel like this, but it doesn't have as many options. Okay, but it does exist. I can show you that too sometime, where you can start and stop services and things like that. But what we're going to walk through today is creating our own. We're going to publish our own data, put our own data up there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, did it work for everybody? You guys are getting errors? You're not getting errors? Did it work for anybody in the coast? Did you get in? So, did it work for everybody on the coast? It did? Okay. Good. It didn't work for somebody here that's using, but you're still using, what are you using for your internet connection? Which is still on campus, right? I mean, so campus doesn't have anything to do with it. I just access it on my phone, which isn't using the USM. It's just using LTE and it works. So there's something up, and we can debug it, but there's something up with just that computer. All right, maybe the EDU roam doesn't allow the 8080. I don't know, but anyway, we're on now, and okay, we're gonna publish some data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload, I don't know which data, one of the data sets from the previous week. One of these data sets. Counties is kind of big. Let's do just the, where did I put this data? USA. I had the roads, right? Well, yeah. Maybe I will just do the counties. But they have to be a shapefile, okay? The data format that this is in a geodatabase. So geodatabase is not going to work. I'm going to do the roads first, just because I think it'll be smaller. So we got our interstates, right? There's our interstates. I'm going to load them up. Of course, the interstate layer is pretty complicated up here, but not too bad. I'm going to save this out as a shapefile. So I go into Arc Toolbox, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the projection, because I haven't reprojected this data. I'm going to reproject it to Web Mercator, and at the same time, I'm going to save it as a shapefile. So I've got my interstates here. I'm going to go under Project, and I'm just going to drag the interstates up there, and it's in latitude, longitude. But I'm going to change it to Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere. This part you don't have to follow along because we're not going to all be able to copy our data up right now. Maybe if anybody wants to be getting some data ready during the break, I could put your data up, or you could put your data up if you're fast enough and you get on before anybody else does. But it might just be easier to send it to me. All right, so I'm going to be transforming this to Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere, and I'm going to save it, not here, but I'm going to save it as, I'm going to save it under, I'll still put it in CTemp USA, but instead of putting it inside that directory, I'm just going to call it istates.shp, and then hit save. So now it's going to save. Why not make it called interstates? So now it's going to be called interstates.shape. I'm converting the file format because GeoServer doesn't read geodatabases. It only reads shapefiles. Shapefiles were also created by ESRI, but the format's been open sourced. I'm not going to worry about fixing anything else on here. I'm just going to hit OK. It's going to convert this interstates to a shapefile and add it to the map. And when it's done, I'm going to upload it to the server using our technique of accessing it through remote desktop. So it's done now. You can see that it's on the map. Okay. Now, if I look at the projection, I go to source, it's in Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere, so that's great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close ArcMap, because if I don't, there'll be a little schema lock file that I don't want to copy. It won't be a big deal, but it's just something that I like to do. I'm going to go back to the server. So at this point, you can't really do this right now because we can't all be on the server at the same time. So I'm going to go to that directory, and this directory is the directory that I put up there. C, program files, x86. There is a regular program files. Don't go to that one. Go to program files, x86. GeoServer 2.10.0, data dir, data underscore dir, data. You don't have to type all this in. You could just navigate to it. But if you did want to type it all in, you could type it in like that. Then, what I want you to do is to create your own directory with your last name. So I'm going to create one called Raver. Okay, so I've got Raver in there. And now I want to copy my files into Raver. And you're free to organize your file structure even a little bit more. So if you want to have separate files inside of your files inside of here, go for it. Because you might have a folder for, you know, data for one of the week's assignments and your final project data. And if you want to separate them, that's fine. I'm not going to separate them right now because it doesn't really bother me to have I'm probably not going to have more than 10 or 12 data sets in here. So we're going to throw them all into this directory. But first I need to go get them. And where did I put them? I put them on my local disk. So I need to go to my local disk. By the way, desktop-HB7QK91, that's just the name of this computer when iTech set it up. Okay, so it's you'll see something else there. It'll say C on or D on or E on, whatever. If your thumb drive is drive E, it'll say E on whatever the name of your local computer is. I'm going to go in there, the C in C desktop, and I'm going to pull off the C temp USA data or USA, and I have in here my interstates file. I'm going to copy all of those. Okay, for a shapefile, you need to copy all of them. The shapefile is not really a single file. It's kind of funny that they call it a shapefile format because it's really like a lot of files. I'm going to copy those. So I copied all of these, and then I'm going to put them back in that other directory. I'm just going to use back to get me back to that other directory. There I am, and I hit paste. So now it's copying these up. Now if you have a really large, this file is 5 meg. It's not like tiny, but it is pretty small. But you saw that it took, I don't know, 3-4 seconds. So if it was 20 meg, it might take 20 seconds. So it looks like it's about that. So if it was 100 megabytes, it might take a little over a minute. So you can see how doing it this way through the remote desktop can add up. And so you might have to just go grab a drink or something while it's copying if your data set's large. Okay. But since we're not going to create tile data sets, if you want to put a gig up there, go for it. It might take a little while to copy, but it's not going to cause any more load on the server until somebody actually accesses the data because we're running GeoServer. So we've got this shapefile copied up there. So we're ready to actually publish this. We're kind of doing this in the reverse order of ArcGIS. Remember in ArcGIS, we got the data all ready the way we wanted to, and then we published it, and at the very end, ArcMap took care of copying the data up to the server. Remember that? So here, we got to get our data up there first, and then we're going to tell GeoServer how to publish it, or how to create the service for it. So now, at this point, we don't need remote desktop anymore. We can do the rest of this from this interface. So you can do this anywhere. That's what I mean by, if you have trouble getting your data up, send it to me, I'll put your data up, and then you'll know where it is, and you'll be able to get it. Maybe I'll send you a message back saying I put it right here. And you can actually publish it from GeoServer. If you do that, please send the email to my regular email address, george.raber@usm.edu. That way I'll get it quick, or graber@gmail.com. Don't send it to the course grading assignment, otherwise I might not check it for a little while. All right. So it's kind of like a class question. The question for the class, email my regular email address. All right, so now we're going to walk through the process of creating a published service. Okay. So most of what we're going to do is actually in this first group of things to do. In fact, the reason why it's up at the top is because this is the most important stuff. These are this takes care of 90% of what you're going to do with GeoServer. These other things are things that you would change less often. So we're going to talk about this today, the data part. Right? Now, the first thing that I like to do is to create a workspace. But a workspace is something that you don't create every time you want to publish, but you create a workspace when you're trying to create a new group of layers that you want to deal with. So for our purposes, we can all create one workspace for each of us, maybe. If you want to, you can create another workspace for assignments versus your final project. It's just an organization. In fact, think of this word workspace like ArcGIS. ArcGIS refers to the same concept as a folder. Okay? So GeoServer calls them workspaces, and the icon that is right next to the workspace is actually a folder. So I'm going to hit workspaces. Here's a list of my current workspaces. George, which is just a dummy one that I made up just to make sure it was working a few minutes before class started. And then these other ones are actually workspaces that are created by default, unless you tell it not to. But since I chose all the defaults when I set up ArcGIS, when I set up GeoServer, I chose all the defaults, it created all of these. And there are some data published in each of these, but we're going to create a new one. So if you want to, right now, you can create one. You can do this with me. If not, go back and watch the video and do it later. I'm going to add a new workspace right here. And the name of my workspace is just going to be my last name for now, Raber. Okay? And then the namespace URI is just, I'm just going to copy this part down here and put in /Raber. It doesn't actually have to be a valid URI or URL. It doesn't have to be a valid one, but it can be. We don't check default workspace. We don't want this to be the default workspace. We could, like if you were if this was your own GeoServer, and this was where you're going to publish most of your layers into this workspace, go ahead and check default workspace, but we're not going to. Then hit submit. Now you'll notice that it appears in this list. Raber appears there. If anybody else, yep, a few of you published some others. Okay. You got an error? Was it on the computer? What did the error say? It's long. I wonder if it's just because we're all pressing the button about the same time. I created it. Just go back and hit refresh on. Go back to just hit workspace. Oh. Anybody else get an error? In the coast, did you all get an error? Oh, that's when it pops up. Go back. You can remove it and see if adding it again works. Adding it again. I don't know why that happened. I don't know why Lance might be a reserved word. I'm not sure. Anybody else get an error, or was it just Lance? Anybody that tried it? Heather, it looks like you tried it. Okay. Okay, cool. Garrett, yours worked. Cool. Good. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to create what we call a data store. Now you all can skip this step for now. Unless you want to create a data store to my directory, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because we'd have, let me explain what a data store is first. I'm going to hit data store, and then I'm going to hit add new store. So a data store is basically just a pointer for GeoServer to some data. In other words, you're saying, I put some shapefiles right here for you, GeoServer. And so it doesn't make sense for us to say, hey, I put some data here, and I put some data in the same place, and I also put the data in the same place. So we have like, 10 people saying, oh, I put a bunch of data in the Raber directory, right? So we don't all need to do this, because you guys can see the data store I created, or you can also create your own data store. In fact, we don't need a ton of data stores. We could just create one data store and throw our data in there. Okay? But anyway, the point is we don't all need to point, say here's the data. I just need to do that once. So under new data source, when we publish a layer, we can all publish the same layer, because that's a little different. All right. So there are a number of data sources that you can add. All right. We're going to do this post-GIS thing after I get back from my trip. But by far and away, shapefile is the most popular data store out there. Okay. So I'm going to hit shapefile. I'm going to create a new ESRI data store. ESRI shapefile data store. So this data store that's going to get created is a connection to that shapefile. It's just saying, here's the shapefile. It's basically telling GeoServer where the shapefile is on the server. Because right now, where's this program running right here? This program that you're seeing, where's it running? This web interface. It's actually running on your computer, on your browser, right? So it's doing some stuff on the back end, but it's still the same model where it requests information and it displays information, but the stuff that you're seeing here is running on your computer. So we need to name the data source, and it helps if you name the data source something that it actually is. So interstates will be what I'll call it. And the description can be long or short, but it can be longer than just the data. The data source name can't have any spaces. It can have underscores if you wanted to do underscores, but it can't have any spaces. And I believe the restriction on the data source name is still limited to something like 256 characters. The description can be longer, and more importantly, it can have spaces. So I can write something like interstates in the United States. Okay. All right. Enabled means that I want people to be able to use it. You can disable a data store. In other words, you can say, okay, I created this data store, but I don't actually want people to use it yet. I'm not going to enable it yet. We're just going to enable it right off the bat. That way you can take data up and down by just unclicking enable and disable. All right, so this is where it's important that you know where it is on the server. I'm going to hit browse, and you'd expect it to browse the local computer, but it doesn't do that. This browses the data directory. So in other words, if I go back up to the server for a second, anything under this data dir, it's browsing. So see coverages, data, demo, all the way down. It's looking at those directories. So if I go back over to here, I put my stuff in data, Raber, There it is, interstates.shape, and I can go ahead and select it. So now I've told it where that file is on the server. So I wouldn't have been able to see that until I uploaded it. All right. This, just leave it default. This is good to check. It will take a longer time the bigger your data set is, but it will allow your data to display faster if it's indexed. Most shapefiles are already indexed. I'm pretty sure this one is. Let me look here. Back on the server. Data, Raber, SHX. Yes. So this is the index file for the shapefile. The SHX file. So this one's already indexed. It basically allows the data to be searched and spatially referenced faster. Yeah, so also, there's no reason not to check this. And when you're done, hit save. Okay, so now I have my new layer called interstates, my new data store. Okay, I can go to publish from right here. Okay, so I'm going to, well, I actually told you not to do this. Hold on a second here. wm.smaps.org/8080. I'm going to see if it's in the list. /geoserver. Oh, I forgot to change the workspace over to Raber. Let me do that real quick. Do this and see if now they're both probably there. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to delete this one. Remove selected stores. Okay. Okay. So now I've got Raber interstates. Okay. Yeah. Let's do it this way. So I'm just going to show you right after you create a new data store, you can go right in to publish it right then. You can hit publish. Okay. But let's say your computer crashed or something happened before you did that. Okay. Now this is something we could all do together. So if you go down to layers and you say add new layer, now you can say, okay, I'm going to choose Raber interstates and hit publish. Okay, so that's how you get to the map that I just got to. So if everybody wants to do that, you can do that. Go to edit layer. Here, I'll do it one more time. So go to layers. I'm going to close this and go back to GeoServer. wm.smaps.org, GeoServer. Go to layers, add new layer, drop down and choose Raber interstates. Now we're kind of being silly in that we're all creating a new layer, but that's okay. Why don't we create our layers? Type in interstates and what we'll do is if you want to publish this service right now, type in interstates dash and put the name, your last name. Because if you don't do that, then we'll all be publishing the exact same service. If you don't want to publish it right now, you don't have to, because the assignment is for you to walk through and do this by yourself. Okay? So interstates Raber is what I'm going to put. You can put a title here. You can put an abstract. In other words, you can put a whole paragraph now into into a space where the end user could see it. Okay? If they wanted to use your data, they could see the abstract of your data. All right, you can put in keywords because GeoServer actually allows you to search layers by keyword. So if you've got some other keywords you'd like to put in there, it kind of looks through and sees what would be good ones, features, interstates, or what it's going to put here. You can put new ones in, like if I want to put USA, I could do that. Add keyword, there it's there. All right. Metadata, we're not going to put in any metadata here, but you could put data about data. It has to be in XML format. All right. Okay, so for the coordinate reference system, we're going to put in the the right coordinate system, which is WGS84. I don't know what this one is. What's this one? Okay, so that's not right. All right, we want to do, because that just says some wildcard. Basically, I don't think that it can read the coordinate system that we put in there. Which one? The one we put in there was Web Mercator. I know the spatial reference number is 3857. Okay, /3857. That one's not found. Web Mercator uses, let's see what they, I said 3857. Oh, that's not the, yeah, APSG 3857, should work. Okay, so that's what you're going to put. EPSG 3857 is what it should be there. EPSG 3857:3857 is Web Mercator. You do have to know the SRS code. Most of the time it's going to be 3857 if you want your data in Web Mercator. However, if your data is only going to be consumed as GeoJSON, you probably want that in latitude longitude, which was 4326. Okay. All right. So we're going to leave that. Now we're going to hit compute from data here. And we're going to do it again. Compute from native bounds. This is getting the the edges of your data. So this is for the United States. So let's see what the minimum x is, negative 158 degrees. The maximum x is negative 67 degrees. We're at like negative 80 something here, so that kind of makes sense, right? If you go over to like the east coast of Maine, or maybe it's counting Puerto Rico too, because there are some interstates in Puerto Rico. Anyway, negative 67 makes sense because we're at about negative 88, 89, I think. I forget exactly where we are. But anyway, this is actually looking at your data and calculating the bounding box. You could put in different values if you wanted to. Like if you wanted to say, well, I just wanted to ignore some of the external data, you could do that. But typically, you just hit compute from native bounds and compute from data. All right. Shapefiles don't support circular arcs, so there's no point in checking that. The rest of these are fine. These are your fields. These are your data types for your fields. Okay, there is a few more things we need to change under publishing. So click the publishing tab. And here, you're going to change things in the WMS settings. Well, you're actually not going to change anything. I'm telling you, though, this is where you would change the style. So the default style is line. We can choose other styles that already exist, like restricted is a red box. Rain. That would only work on a raster. Green. Grass. So you can see the styles show up here. You have to symbolize them because there's no symbology that's there by default. Tiger Roads is on there. What does that look like? It's not showing up. Oh, there it is. Tiger Roads is showing up. But we're going to choose line. Okay, looks like that. Now, QGIS does have this thing called an SLD creator that will create different styles for you. Okay? But it is kind of clunky and hard to get around. So anyway, you could create it and then you could upload it to this area right here called styles. And maybe we can walk through creating a new style here in a second. But this is where you would assign your layer a style. We're going to assign it just the default, the line style, which is kind of a light blue line. All right. Now we'll just hit save, and it will be published. So here's mine right here called Interstates Raber. And I can click on it. Oops, that'll take me back in. That's not what I meant to do. So it's Interstates Raber. There's another one. There's another one that somebody created. Okay. This is this one you created, Oda? Okay, use a slash instead of a dash. Hopefully that still works. Let's see. So let's go into layer preview. Go into layer preview. Then you'll be able to click on the layers you just created. So I'm going to click on. So Open Layers is another web mapping API. I'm going to click on Open Layers because that's the default that they. Unfortunately, they don't use Leaflet. So it's there. Now I have it. I can zoom in, and I've got I've got my map there. I can even click on it and get information about the interstate that exists right there. Okay. Zoom out. All right. So I can put this into a leaflet now if I want to. This is putting it into Open Layers. All right, let's see if this one works. Yeah, so I believe, Elida, that yours is not working because of the slash. Oh, you changed it? Awesome. Okay, cool. It looks like everybody's is working that I can see. Awesome. Okay, so the main assignment will be to put your data up there and then put it in a leaflet map. All right? We're going to talk about a few different ways to put it into a leaflet map. You can obviously just use WMS, which is what OpenLayers is doing. We can also look by default. We have the ability to have a WMS connection, but we also have the ability to get a CSV file, which some services will accept. Okay, but probably even more cool is that we have the ability to get GeoJSON and GeoJSON-P. We need to actually utilize GeoJSON-P, and we'll talk about that when we come back from break. But see, here's the GeoJSON connection to the data. All right. We're going to have to republish some data because this data is not in. Well, actually, I'll see if I can fix I'll see if I can fix this, but this is not in latitude and longitude. And GeoJSON for leaflet is expected to be in latitude and longitude. So we have two options. One, we could either publish it as latitude, longitude, or we could modify the projection. Okay. I hit the right thing. Interstates Raber. Yeah, okay, that works. All right. So that's a good stopping point. Let's take a 15-minute break. Come back at 6:45, and we'll put this into a leaflet. All right. I'm gonna research changing the projection on the fly, just really quick, as part of that. But before I do that, I'm going to. Oh, this is actually week 10, part 1. Week 10, and this is is this 469 or 4? What's that? Yeah, or 569, but okay.